2. Everyone give it up for Todd.
All right. Actually, it's already on. All you gotta do is point it. Okay. But it's already running.
Okay.
All right. First, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. Can everyone hear me like this too?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Cool. All right. So I'm gonna read from my novel, Blood Stew. This is actually the third book in a series of books called The Windshine Chronicles, and it takes place in South Korea, a version of South Korea called South Hanguk. Hanguk is the Korean word for Korea, so it takes place in medieval version of South Hanguk. And this chapter is actually chapter 19. It's actually a chapter called Blood Stew. So it gives you an idea of why the novel is actually called Blood Stew. All right. Hunger sparked the flame of thought that wavered in the empty landscape of his mind. An ember flickered from the thought and landed on another, set in the light. That one tumbled into another, and then another, until a chain reaction of contemplation began to push back the darkness. The thinker gradually became aware of his physical shape. Legs and arms tingled. Muscles connected to his wings tightened. Ribs throbbed from a fresh wound, yet no blood snaked down his skin. His body had dried out and was now no more than a desiccated husk. The fog in his mind continued to evaporate. Broken images fell together like pieces of a puzzle and built a memory of his past. It tried to recall his name and soon remembered it had none, except what the meat called it, orsig. Its sense of smell returned. The familiar aroma of salt and fish and seaweed was heavy in the air. Searching for greater detail of his identity, the orsig dug through his thoughts, tunnelling into the depths of his mind until it reached the surface of his earliest memory, its rocky home, the crag. In the beginning, the orsig had slept in the liquid fire of inner earth. Then the ground had rumbled, waking it, while the lava bubbled up out of its deep core, pushing the orsig into the open air above the ground. Birthing from his rocky wound and gripped by a tormenting hunger, the orsig knew that it must feed or waste away. Weak, it had gone after whatever was close at first, sucking the juice from large, flying bugs washed onto the rocks by the sea. As it grew stronger, the orsig discovered wings had grown from its shoulders. It began to fly over the churning waves of the ocean. With quick hands, it snatched fish from the water, its black wings riding the air currents buffeting the crag. One day, it flew farther from its rocky home than it had ever been, and saw a wooden shell of meat drifting by. The hunger directing it, the orsig swooped down and grabbed the squealing meat. The meat had struggled more than the fish ever did, lashing out at it with sharp pincers clutched in tiny hands, until the orsig was forced to drop it from great height onto the crag. The meat was barely alive when the orsig began to feast upon it. It found the blood especially delicious, and noticed that soon after this feast it had grown taller, bigger, stronger. The meat's blood, which did not exist in bugs and fish, seemed key to unlocking its true potential. So the orsig spent its days in the rocky crag, watching for the meat to drift by in their wooden shells. It realized that hunting during violent storms was easiest, as the meat weren't as capable of defending themselves with their sharp projectiles and pincers that came in a variety of shapes and sizes. The orsig's body grew quickly, doubling in size with each meal. Its wings could not take it far out to sea any longer. It would wait patiently until the time when the sky darkened with clouds, and thunder echoed above the crashing waves. During these wild storms, the Orsic would fly from its rocky home, breaking open the shells with his long fingers and scooping out the meat from where they cowered. It bundled them in nets of silk spun from spiders crawling in the fissures of the crag and carried them back to his home. There, the Orsic would choose one a day, bringing it to the top of the rocky expanse, highest precipice. It would strip the meat's failing limbs and turn them in half so that it could make blood stew in the clay bowl it had fashioned. The Orsic eventually learned how to keep the meat alive on seafood and seaweed, throwing fresh fish down to them to make sure they did not lose their weight or starve. On the day of his best catches, it would sometimes have 24 meat in the caves of his rocky home. With nothing else to do, the Orsic often listened to them from above, the strange pulsing noises emitting from their mouths echoing on the rocky shore. As countless seasons passed, he eventually learned to understand some of their utterance. This is how it discovered the chain of sounds they used to refer to it, Orsic, and the sound they called themselves, men. Time passed, the sea always bringing in more meat to feed upon. Its body quickly shrank in times of want, but just as quickly filled out again after a hearty meal of meat and blood. One day, it dawned on the Orsic that the wooden shells drifting past his crag had dwindled in number. The Orsic wondered if some sickness had afflicted the meat at their source. It was forced to fly farther and farther from the jagged rock of his home. Its wings tired upon its massive bulk, and often feared it would plunge into the sea and be unable to take flight again. When the longest stretch of time had passed between sightings of the wooden shells, leaving the Orsic to feed only on fish taken from the sea, that it did not satisfy its blood hunger, clouds again darkened the sky. In desperation, it flew out from the crag and finally caught what would become its final meal. A dozen squirming and screaming pieces of meat it brought back in its silk net and deposited on the rocky shores of its crag. It made sure to disarm the meat with their projectiles and sharp-pointed tubes, then crouched down to look at the tiny animals. I know little of your sounds, it told them, but set all but one of the men to scramble to the far rocky caves away from it. Has something happened to where you came from? Monster, the meat shouted at him. We've learned to avoid these cursed rocks in your endless appetite for human flesh and blood. The Orsic sat on his haunches, surprised. If you do not come, I will starve, it said simply. So I must go to you. And then swept up the meat that had answered, flew to the top of the crag's precipice, ripped him in half, and drained his blood into his clay bowl. Every day, it feasted upon its stew of blood and flesh as it gazed out and thought on the horizon. When the last of the meat was consumed and the Orsic was left only the bones to drive between its teeth, it made a decision. It left from its crag for the last time and flew past the point of no return. And I'm losing my voice, so. Thanks.
Questions?
Yeah, sure.
Why did you choose this book? What do you like about it?
So this is a series called The Windshine Chronicles, and the series is about these young men.
What do you like about it?
Oh, right. And the series is about these young men who go off to become heroes. And the idea is that the quest to become a hero is extremely difficult. And so it's a comparison to trying to chase your dreams. You have to try to accomplish these really big things that are generally really difficult in order to finally win. And that's why I wrote these. It's 3 books right now. That's why I wrote them.
Okay. I heard it, but I wasn't sure. You say you authored them?
Yeah, this is me.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right, that's good. All right, okay. So what inspired you to do that?
Anyone who has dreams. If you have dreams, most of the time it's really hard to accomplish. In this book, it's a fantasy book, so the dreams are monsters. But in real life, in order to accomplish your dreams, it takes a massive amount of effort. So in this book, they have to actually defeat the Orsig. And this Orsig is this towering creature with wings that feasts upon humans. And that's their quest. But in real life, everyone has a quest, and it's a metaphor for a quest. For trying to accomplish these really big things.
Okay.
And these huge kind of obstacles in your way.
That's good. You have more in the pipeline? More books outside of the series you've written?
Yeah, I have a horror book. This is actually not horror, believe it or not. This is dog fantasy. But I have a horror book called A Soul a Day. It comes out in a couple of months. And that one takes place in Seoul, like modern day Seoul. Yeah, that one's coming out in a couple of months. But I will be in Ackworth signing books next Saturday. It's like a film book festival in Ackworth, Georgia. So if anyone wants to go there, it's at Rogers School from 10 o'clock in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. So if you want to go there, you can.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, cool, thanks.